Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Miana Melendez and I'm here to talk to you about my experience living here in Mexico and how I got here from Chicago and all the things in between. So today I want to talk to you about some expense related things that you want to consider if you are wanting to move here to Mexico. Now for me, I live in the sunny shores of Puerto Vallarta in Jalisco. So for me, it's, this is my experience, but I know a lot of this information is going to support you regardless of what country or where in Mexico you might be considering moving. Okay, so the 7 things that I want to share with you is related to your expenses, because my previous video, I shared all about how I saved $5,000 in 1 year and that supported me moving. Now I had other money saved up besides that, so it wasn't just $5,000 in total, but in 1 year, that is how much I saved on top of what I had been saving as, my own little nest egg. And so today I want to tell you about the 7 things that you must consider when you're thinking about your budget, because your budget is going to fluctuate once you start thinking about some of these expenses. So the first thing, of course, on everybody's mind is the flight. what are you doing with your flight? If you're really thinking about moving, then I'm assuming that you're probably going to be taking a one-way ticket. However, if you're only going to be here for the tourist visa in Mexico, that's 180 days or 6 months, which is a huge chunk of time if you ask me. That's still a long time, and so maybe you want to book a round trip ticket. Either way, that's your decision, but that's something that you first want to think about, because when you think of your budget in total, you're thinking, oh, I want to have $5,000, $10,000. Well, these are the expenses that are going to immediately cut into that. So if you want to have $5,000 in total once you get down here, then you really actually need to save a few thousand more once I include some of these other expenses that are going to zip through your budget really quickly. So of course, your flight. How much is your flight going to be, and what kind of flight do you want, right? And not only that, the baggage. When I moved down here, I had 2 bags of luggage, 2 boxes, and 2 cats. So that's the second thing that I want to bring up is special luggage. You might be doing something extra special. Some people can travel for 6 months to a year in 1 suitcase. Some people, like myself, I was permanently moving, so I had 2 suitcases full of my personal things. My mom was also here, so I brought 2 boxes for her, and I had 2 cats, and I needed 2 individual cat carriers for both of them. And so I had a lot of things when I was walking into the airport, and all of those extra things cost money, right? So of course, as you know, when you're traveling internationally, you do get a little bit more leeway as far as the weight goes. But of course, if you have a huge suitcase, which I did, it makes so much sense to have either a huge suitcase and stuff it and pay for that extra fee, or have 2 and have them both meet the weight requirements and then tack on extra luggage that you could store in cargo. And if you are bringing pets, that's definitely something to consider, because you might not be bringing them you're bringing them in for cargo space, and that's not the same cost as a ticket per se, but it still is an extra fee. And if you have, depending on the size of your cat or your dog or whatever animal you're bringing, makes a difference. And you have to consider as well that they have paperwork. You have to go to your veterinarian. They have to have specific shots. They have to have, on this day you paid for this and it was in 30 days of your flight. So look into that for sure, because it definitely makes a difference as well. As well as when you get to Mexico, that same paperwork that you brought them through needs to be accurate for here in Mexico. And I'll tell you, when I got to Mexico, all my paperwork when I was there in the US, all my paperwork was fine. But when I got here to Mexico, I had all of my things, all my luggage and baggage. I was getting my cats And the paperwork, even though it looked right, it was right on one side of the border. Once I got here to Jalisco, I was in Guadalajara at the time, and my paperwork was wrong. So they needed to they called a vet that the airport has, and I had to pay an extra fee right then and there. So that's just a real life scenario that sometimes things come up. So you wanna make sure that whatever you're doing is right on both sides of the border, because it makes a difference. Okay, so we're talking about flight, we're talking about special luggage. Maybe you're an artist, maybe you're a sports person, maybe you have extra special things. All of those things add up, right? Okay, so step number 3 that you want to consider as well is, especially if you're permanently moving, you want to think about at-home storage. Are you selling everything, or are there things, can you give away a lot of your things? Is your storage are you paying to have storage somewhere in the US for just in case, I don't know, I'm staying for a year, but I know I'm gonna come back, or I don't know exactly what's happening, but I do wanna permanently move. Nobody else can keep my things in their house, so I have to, pay that monthly fee. That's something to consider, because it's going to get taken out of your budget immediately, if you deduct what that cost might be for a storage at a U-Haul or a used storage kind of place. So that's definitely something to consider, is how long are you staying and how serious are you about staying wherever it is that you want to stay. And of course, as well, I have my notes here, you guys, because notes are important when it comes to this kind of stuff. Yes. Also, because you're going to be moving, let's say for even just the tourist visa, do you want to stay in an Airbnb? I'm assuming you're not going to stay in a hotel, but whatever you'd like. Or are you trying to stay in a longer term kind of space? Do you want to have a pre-furnished or a no furnished? Now, let me tell you, being from the States, I know that when you move into a place, it's very custom that everything is not furnished. Of course, you have a stove, a fridge, if you have, the convenience of a washer dryer in your apartment, but everything else, and a bed as well. But you don't really have a couch. There's not a lot of stuff when you first move into an apartment. Well, when you're moving, you see it quite differently. For the first times that I moved into a pre-furnished place because I wasn't sure exactly what my situation was going to be. Like I said, I was in Guadalajara. I'm now here in PV, Puerto Vallarta. I'm still here in Jalisco, but I'm hours away from where I started. So it made sense for me at the time to pay a little bit extra in rent while I can move in, and I have a couch, I have a bed, I have chairs, I have everything that I need to live comfortably. Even there's silverware here. I have cups and forks and knives and things. Or if you know you're here to stay and you're here for good and you have that extra money saved up, then you can move into, a semi-furnished or a no furnished place. So those are all things to consider. And of course it changes what your rent might be, but it's so comfortable to walk into a door, and especially if you're traveling by yourself, to walk into a place and have everything you need to have your first few days, weeks, months there, until you really get acclimated and say, okay, now I feel comfortable to move into a true apartment or move into a different style Airbnb. And this is also really important because it counts for your kitchen. Are you moving into a place that has a kitchen, that doesn't have a kitchen? Maybe it has a kitchenette, which is more of like a stovetop. It's not a full stove. When I think of a stove and being from the States, I think of a stovetop with 4 burners probably and an oven. Here though, they have a lot of places that are obviously cheaper in rent, that are probably more studio style, have just 2 stovetop burners that you could keep somewhere on your kitchen counter that's run by gas. So that's something also to consider. Do you at least have a mini fridge and a little kitchenette style so you can make yourself things? Because of course, when it comes to budgeting, it's super important to think about your food, right? How are you going to eat your food? Do you have to eat out every single day? Because that's gonna drive your budget immensely every single day. Or do you have a full kitchen or some way, a microwave at least, a way for you to prepare something, right? Okay, so we talked about flights. We talked about special luggage, package, cargo space. We talked about if you're going to have an at-home storage, you know, your home country, your neighborhood, are you going to have things in storage there, as well as what kind of place do you want to move into, a full furnished, a semi-furnished, a no furnished, and of course, if that includes a kitchen as well. Next, of course, I want to talk about your work situation. Are you going to be here working still? You know, if you have some type of remote work opportunity, is that going to be able to support you in your budget? Because obviously then you could be a little bit more flexible because you're going to be continuously making money even while you get here. Or are you going to be living 100% off of your savings, like a true fixed income? That's really something to consider, and really something that's important, because you know, if you're on a fixed budget, then you really have to be aware of every peso that you're spending. Whereas if you're here and you're able to live more freely because you're still making money, especially if it's in US, then you know you can do more things and live with more freedom. Also, I want to say too, is how long are you staying? That's super important to consider. You know, I know so many of us are, again, because Mexico is lenient, I think, on having a 180-day tourist visa. That's the normal custom once you get here, as 6 months. That's a long time. And so if you think you want to stay for just that amount of time, then that's one, budget. However, if you're, maybe you're in month 4 and you know that you want to stay longer, well then I would start considering looking at ways that you can continuously work here, work online some way so you can continue to stay. But also it's important because if you know you are going to stay here past the 180-day mark, then that becomes more towards expenses because you have to file paperwork. You can't just stay here, right? Then you'll be illegal while living here in Mexico, and you can't do that. That'll get you in more trouble than you need. So you need to consider if there's additional paperwork that you're going to have to file once you get here to become a temporary resident, which is what I am. So, and if you do that, then if I were you, I would ensure that you bring all of your necessary paperwork on your initial visit once you get here. Like obviously you need your passport just to get in, but your passport, your birth certificate, your social security card, all of those important documents, you need those while you're here if you're going to be filing for additional paperwork if you're trying to stay here for longer, for a temporary residency. And I'll share more on that, on how to become a temporary resident, because everybody has different situations, and that's a whole other video. So if you're interested in becoming a temporary resident specifically in Mexico, again, I'm in Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco, then I have specific details for you, and I'm sure they're probably just about all the same in every state, but every state might have specific, things, but federally, I believe everything stays just about the same. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. This is 7 things to consider when it comes to thinking about your budget and thinking about how much money are you literally bringing versus how much money do you have to spend before you even get here, like your flight, cargo, what kind of place do you want to live in? Are you going to be living on a fixed income, or are you going to be able to work here? And do you want to stay here permanently? And as well as other things that you should consider when, of course, moving to another country. You always want to have extra cash on hand, because you just never know what you might run into or what awesome adventures are calling for you. And it's that trip or chance of a lifetime. And of course, while you're here, c'est la vie, you want to be able to experience your travels to the fullest. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Thank you so much for tuning in again. My name is Miana Melendez. I'm here, Miana in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for my next video on how to become a temporary residency, and some tips and tricks on how to do just that. So hope you're having a beautiful day. And until next time, love my little bell.